Welcome to Uplitarian Podcast.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Publitarian Podcast. I am Ronald Johnson, and thank you for being here. All right, let us get right to it. I had just had a realization about how dependent we are upon machines, and how the Terminator movie scenarios could be very real very soon. I'm walking my dog last night, just going down the street, and I'm like, man, it is hot out here. And I just scream into the void, Alexa, what's the temperature out here? Uh-oh, wait a minute.
Right now, it's 81 degrees. Today, expect a high of 90 degrees.
Yeah, and that's what I was expecting to hear. Obviously, I was walking around outside, and I'm yelling into the void for my Amazon Echo to tell me what the temperature is outside. And that's how dependent we've become upon machines. So I think the Skynet scenario could definitely happen. Anyway, super embarrassing. I'm glad nobody was around. Or I hope nobody was around. Anyway, we are into episode 11 today, and it is entitled Working with Murphy. And what do I mean by that? We have this law that governs our universe, and it's a law that we may have put into existence as human beings, but nevertheless, it's still there. It's called Murphy's Law. And I'm sure everyone is familiar with Murphy's Law, because some jackass always quotes it to you when something goes wrong in your life. But Murphy's Law is, very simply, if something can go wrong, it will. And I have developed some life hacks that I think will help you. And that's why I called this episode Working with Murphy, because I'm going to be running through some things that I do to work with Murphy. Because obviously we can't challenge Murphy. Murphy is the one that's made the law. So this is how we work with Murphy. Example number 1, and I use this one all the time, and it works 9 times out of 10. 60% of the time, it works every time. Now this is like a 9 out of 10. If you are in a traffic situation where you are sitting at a red light, and it's one of those lights that just goes on forever, and does not change. Here's what you do. You make it super inconvenient for you to go when the light turns green. And that way it will kind of bend Murphy to your will. That way you're working with Murphy. So what happens? The light's red, you're sitting there at the traffic light. Make it super inconvenient. Start making an important phone call. Look away from the light for a minute. Unbuckle your seatbelt for a second. Like, make it to where you have to open your car door for a second even. Just make it inconvenient for you to, start looking for some papers somewhere. At worst, you'll have somebody behind you honk when the light turns green. At best, you know that you were working with Murphy, and the light will turn green. So there we go. Boom. Life hack number 1 with working with Murphy. Life hack number 2, working with Murphy. Let's say you're waiting for an important call, an important text. It's the girl you like. It's the guy you like. It's your boss. It's confirming a job. It's just you need important news of something, and you're not getting the text. You're not getting the call. If you want the text or the call, again, just make it inconvenient for yourself to not take that call. Jump in the shower. Put your hands in some dishwater to where you can't dry your hands in time. You'll definitely get a call then. This one works a lot of the time. See, if Murphy's going to happen, we just have to work with him. So we can use Murphy to our own good ends. And then that brings me to number 3, waiting for the restaurant to buzz you when you have your little pager, or some restaurants text you. So you're in line, you're waiting to be seated, and you're sitting there forever and you're trying to rush it along. Again, it's the same rule as 1 and 2. Make it inconvenient for you to take that buzz right then. Go far enough away from the restaurant where it's going to be a little bit of a pain to walk back. You will get that buzz and your seat will be ready. That'll cut a lot of time off. Again, it's all just working with Murphy. The rest of the examples I had are pretty much all along the same vein. That you were waiting for something, and it seems like it's never going to happen. If you work with Murphy in any kind of time waiting example, if you work with Murphy, it will happen a lot faster. So there you go. There's some life hacks on Murphy's Law that will blow your mind. Please feel free to use them and enjoy the time that you are getting back. On a personal note, I have been absent from Instagram for a week for personal reasons, but also I just needed to unplug for a week. And I'm going to challenge you guys and encourage you guys to do that as well. Just take some time, unplug from the 24-hour news cycle, unplug from politics especially, do some unplugging from social media. I chose Instagram specifically because that's the one that I'm on the most, and that's where all my followers and listeners mainly are. So while I was taking a break from that, I ended up going to Twitter more often than I normally would, which is funny because if you've heard my podcast, you know how much I hate Twitter. So I kind of did the reverse that I was trying to achieve with my soul and went onto Twitter for a little bit. And I think that Twitter could save its platform by having a timer that once you read a tweet or a message, you can't respond for 15 minutes. I think that would help them out immensely. Because, again, what's happening is a lot of just reactionary things. People read something and they get upset, and they have this tremendous power to where they can respond instantly back to that person. They can respond instantly. They can react instantly to that tweet, and it's just not good. And Twitter continues to lose money, followers, financial backing, and which is a shame because it could be a good influential voice for left and right wing. It's kind of just a left wing quagmire that conservatives are on just because they have to be to kind of get their news cycle. But yeah, I think that would save Twitter's platform if they would do that. But anyway, yeah, just disconnect from the cycle and take some time for yourself or your family and just appreciate what you have around you. Especially even with just technology in general, it's good to just unplug and let yourself be in the moment and appreciate what you have around you. I did send out a funny tweet though that got hundreds of retweets, and I'm sure you heard the news, even though I was trying not to make this too much of a news podcast, about this chick that works for the Department of Justice who had the gall to harass the DHS secretary. So the Department of Homeland Security, Kristen Nielsen, is just out enjoying a meal somewhere, and this chick who works for the DOJ, she works for the DOJ, comes over and starts harassing her and, doing all the liberal talking points, calling her, a Nazi and a racist and, talking about the kids being separated at the border and everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, really, girl? Really? Her name is Allison something. I can't remember. And I put a throwaway tweet out there that was like, oh, Allison, you thought we could see through that Groucho Marx disguise, and or we couldn't see through that Groucho Marx disguise. And you go down to this picture because somebody was good enough to go over there with a camera and grab her picture really quick. And she does. She looks like she's wearing Groucho Marx glasses, like the glasses with the big furry eyebrows and the giant nose. That's just her face, unfortunately. She looked a lot like that. If you watch Portlandia, she looks like that... The main girl on there. It was just really, it'd be like what you would expect like a left-wing social justice person to look like. Anyway, I got some personal joy out of that. And thank you all for the retweets. Anyway, so like I said, it's important to unplug from that 24-hour news cycle every now and then. Unplug from politics and just take what's in around you. Enjoy life that's around you. Enjoy the world that's around you. And just take some time and do that. It's good for your brain. It's good for your soul. And I think we all need to do a little bit more of it, because we have all, left wing, right wing, doesn't matter. We've all been forced into this 24-hour news cycle. We're just like almost rabid for the news. We're just like the lab rats in the cage, just, hitting that feeder bar, trying to get another pellet. Like we want news that's good for our side or bad for the other side. And that, coupled with the reactionary stuff that I was talking about earlier, it's just not good for us. So it is good to unplug. And even though I did say we need to unplug from the news, I do have some news that matters.
And now, news that matters.
That's right, and this is from John Mueller in Politico. If you take any headline from the news, remember this one. This is important. This is the news that matters. Politico expose on Stephen Miller. Third grade classmate says he was obsessed with tape and glue. That's right, folks. You heard it here on this podcast. This is groundbreaking. This stop the presses, as they used to say. This is the news that matters. White House senior advisor Stephen Miller's third grade classmate penned an op-ed for Politico writing how President Trump's loyal staffer, quote, was obsessed with tape and glue, end quote. In the Politico op-ed, John Mueller, who sat next to Miller in the third grade, described in detail how the senior advisor once played with glue and preferred other classmates not touch his belongings. Mueller writes in the Politico, he especially was obsessed with tape and glue. Along the midpoint of our desk, Stephen laid down a piece of white masking tape, explaining that it marked the boundary of our sides and that I was not to cross it. The formality of this struck me as odd. I was a fairly neat kid, at least at school, and I had never spread my things to his side of the desk. Stephen, meanwhile, could not have been much messier. His side of the desk was sticky and peeling, littered with scraps of paper, misshapen erasers, and pencil nubs. If this adhesive division kept Stephen on his side of the desk, I was all for it, as unfriendly as it seemed. But instead, the tape became an attractive nuisance. Stephen picked at it with his fingernails methodically, and a mixture of absent-mindedness and what seemed like channeled hostility. This process of effacement left a thin layer of sticky grime, not altogether dissimilar from the rest of Stephen's desk. Stephen rubbed his fingers over this layer of grime, rolling it into little gray pellets until it too was gone. Then he applied a new piece of tape, along with a renewed warning that I was not to cross it. Don't rinse, but do repeat for months. It goes on and on. The op-ed was claimed at portraying Miller, even as a child, as being infatuated with walling off his personal space and equating that with his support for a wall along the United States-Mexico border to stop illegal immigration. There you have it, folks. The Politico is doing real news. And you can thank me later for giving you the news that you needed to hear today. And that will pretty much do it for me today. I had pages and pages of news and topics and notes to go through, but I was really just wanting to do a short little life hack lesson today and keep things lighter today on the podcast to give everyone a break from the news cycle and doom and gloom. I would like to play a little tune for you, though, about politically correct culture that brought joy to my heart, and it is called Come Be PC.
I know that you got opinions, but won't you consider this? Your skin tone oppresses millions, so just quiet down a bit. Come join me in gender studies, come get a useless degree. And when you make garbage money, take no responsibility. Come be PC, come be PC. Things are so splendid when you're offended, take it from me. We're fighting for progress, can't you see? Silencing all who might disagree. So respectfully, be a cry bully, come be PC.
I don't need you to do it. Why are you doing this? Everyone's station.
Come join us in our safe spaces, our shelters from points of view. And maybe on rare occasions, we'll let you think something new. But if we deem your thoughts toxic, we might have to shut you down. And if you critique our logic, better use our preferred pronouns. Come be PC. Come be PC. Our low-key racism is heroism, obviously. Let's all fight for the little guy from our parents' mansions online. Come join our prison, look what you're missing. Come be PC. Come be PC. We're a collective, varied perspectives must go unseen. Different opinions are okay, as long as they're different in the same way. Come join our cult, it's not difficult, oh come be PC.
You've never experienced depression in your entire fucking life. Neither have I. You're fucking a white male. I am a fucking punk. Correct. Fucking old ass piece of shit.
Oh, we should start.
Come be PC. Freedom of speech is simply not needed, I guarantee. As long as everyone agrees, we will live in perfect harmony. That's what I'm selling, ain't it compelling? Come be PC. No more mansplaining, no victim blaming. Come be PC. No problematic words that cause panic. No more traumatic fact drinking havoc. I know of vapid minds going rabid. Come be PC.
And there you have it. I had a read that I was going to do, and I ended up I ended up laughing all the way through it. Anyway, that's Come Be PC from Social Justice, the musical. Look this guy up on YouTube. He deserves all your clicks, all your likes, all your subscribes. It's Chris Raygun, Chris, Raygun. It's a free download he's got here. He's got a Bandcamp, but go to his YouTube and search him out. He's got a Facebook, a Twitter, a Twitch, a Patreon, even shirts. It's worth your while to look at the video version of this as well, because there's some like amazingly funny Disney-esque art on this, done by Carissa Maloney, and she's the artist on that, and she also has a link there on his YouTube as well. Chris Raygun. Funny stuff. Thank you, Chris. And that will do it for me today on Publitarian Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to subscribe and be sure to leave me some feedback on my Instagram or my Twitter, or you can email me at publitarian@gmail.com or thepublitarian@gmail.com. We are well over 200 downloads now, and iHeartRadio has just accepted us into their fold, so we're excited about that as well. Again, thank you so much, guys, and I will see you back here sometime next week. Unless I get bored and I have time, I'll do another podcast, because like I said, I had a lot of stuff to get to. Thank you, guys. See you later.
You've been listening to Publitarian Podcast. Copyright 2018.